I've been in the hobby for about 50 years, and I've restored numerous hand pumpers like this that are in museums or at historical societies. I started out in 1976. My brother was a Detroit firefighter, and he encouraged me to go and buy a fire engine with him, and we ended up with a hand pumper. And that hand pumper is now in Rensselaer Historical Society in Troy, New York. That was the first engine I acquired, and since then I've acquired numerous ones. This engine here, this picture here is when my brother brought it back to our house in Detroit. He had just bought this at an auction in Pennsylvania. And we owned this for about 4 years, and then because of career changes, my brother left the Detroit Fire Department, went to Hawaii to become a nurse, and I went to Colorado for business, and so we sold this hand pumper to a friend of ours in Pennsylvania, and sold it to another museum in Mississippi. The owner of the new owner of this fire engine took it to Massachusetts to get it restored, and the gentleman that he hired to restore it didn't do any work, and just took it completely apart. And
how much did you buy it for at auction? You said it was an auction?
Yeah, I bought it at an auction for $1,500.
$1,500 back then. Wow.
But it was in pretty poor shape. I apologize, not that great on okay. This is the engine in storage in Jackson, Michigan before I sold it. And this is the condition of the pumper when I acquired it back in about 6 years ago. As you can see, it's all rotted. The pump box is all rotted out. And this is the condition I found it in when I bought it. All the parts were dismantled and this is in boxes. That's the part of the pump and the axle. And when I acquired these parts, I also got 300 board feet of rough mahogany. And the mahogany itself was worth $1,500 when we bought it. But anyways, this is the beginning of the restoration here. Now, I have a degree in industrial education, shop teaching, and I could have done this myself, but a friend of mine in Maine talked me into having a friend of his who does this kind of woodwork. He had all the tools, and so instead of doing it myself, I sent it up to Maine, and he did the woodwork on this box. He planed all the wood back to the dimensions. He had to make all new engineering drawings. He took the scrap or what was left of the box and made all new drawings, and then he made the tooling to make it. If you have any questions while I'm doing it, feel free to ask. But that's the woodwork that we have. All the stars on this unit here and the diamonds are hand cut into the original wood. That's the way it was designed. That they were back in the 1800s, they hand cut all the stars and diamonds, and we replicated the same thing on the box. shows you him practicing cutting the diamonds before he did it on the table.
The stars and diamonds are wood, they're all wood.
They're different wood, yes.
They're different woods.
Yeah, right. And we're putting the pump back together again with the iron. The iron is just blasted, sandblasted. So all the metal work is sandblasted and primed, and we start putting all the iron work and the brass work back on the pump, just to make sure it all fit together. And then we have to put the axles back on it yet. And we haven't put the pump mechanism back in it yet.
How much time does it last to get this far? How long did it take to get to this point? Like a year or 2 years?
5 years, it took us 5 years. Off and on, I work on 3 fire engines at a time. Because sometimes waiting for parts, and sometimes, you know, we don't work on an engine every day. If there's something we're waiting for, we move on to another one. So right now in my shop, I've got 2 other fire engines. And these are the wheels of the, as they came, the original wheels. They were so rotted out, I had to get them remade. The wheelwright was able to take the spokes. And the original spokes are here. But the hub was so shot that I had to get it rebuilt. And this was done at an auto shop in Indiana. These guys build wheels and carriages for people that have travelers. But they made the wheels for people. I was going to try to fill these with filler, but they were just too far gone, so I had to make new pumps. And the numbers are just to identify which wheel belongs to what. This is the rebuilt wheel with the original pump cap before we painted it. Another shot. And then we started putting the axles and wheels back together again. We haven't painted anything yet. Everything, all the paint on here, except for the wheels, is done by hand. We're just getting all the wood panels back together and all the hardware back together. Even though this was moved numerous times, it was surprising that 98% of the parts were with it. All the moving from Michigan to Massachusetts to down south and into Alabama. All the parts were with it. And then, here I'm decorating the wheels with tape, and all the striping is gold leaf. The diamonds on the little triangles on the spokes are correct form, button-handed, just like every manufacturer had a different design. But the design on the wheels is button. Somebody was to come back from the 1800s and look at this, they would see that the decoration is correct. And this decoration here is you go to a museum and look at a button hand engine or a button steamer, that would be the same decoration that they would have on displays. Every manufacturer has a different design. And that's in my shop. We haven't put the brakes on yet. The brakes are these big, heavy iron. They weigh about 700 pounds each. And one of them was bent. I luckily had a blacksmith that was down the street from me, and he straightened one of them. If you look at it closely, you see one of them is not quite aligned. It's bent in 140 years it was in the service. It got bent, and I had to get it realigned so the holes would be straight somewhat. They couldn't get them completely straight, but that's the way it is for something that's 140 years old.
You're referring to?
Yeah, the iron we work is called brakes, just like a car brake. That's the same spelling. That's what they call them. I don't know where they got the nomenclature for the brakes, but that's what they call them. And this is my shop here. We had to grind all the rust off the brakes and prime them and paint them black. And I have a chain hoist in my shop to lift this up and move it around. As you can see, we have chains on it, so if it rolled over, it wouldn't hurt us. We suspended it from the ceiling, so while we're working on it, we wouldn't shift. And back in the background, on the fire that happens to be a 1910 hand engine, a Howell hand engine from Batavia, Wisconsin. And this is a shot of what the brakes look like if they were cleaned off the paint. And this is a shot of when it was in primer. All the painting is done by hand. I don't use spray paints. And that's the complete brake with one side of it. And then we have to hoist it up and locate it into the pump arms of the pump. And this shot is of another pump. I had to replicate all this mechanism that's underneath the tongue of this unit because it was missing. So what I did, I took pictures of another button hand engine and replicated all the parts by hand. So if you look underneath the part of the tongue, you'll see the mechanism that what it does is it releases the spools of the rope for the men to take it to the fire. And then when they reel it up, it locks it in there so the rope won't unwind.
Is that what the handle is?
Yeah, that's what the handle is.
So the handle works as well.
Then this is the replicated part that I made from that sketch. That's what when we're working on stuff like this, you've got to either go to a museum or find somebody else that has another pumper and take pictures of it, take measurements, and just replicate what they have. Because we don't know what it will look like. We want to make it as historically correct as possible. In fact, I don't use you'll see, and the screws on this. I don't use Phillips head screw heads. It's always got to be straight. They didn't have Phillips head back then. We just use the, you'll see, I have Phillips heads here, but they're not, I took them out and put them straight. And this is a picture of the original hubcap. I had to get 4 made and I have one left. I think threads are all matching. They have to match the original hubcaps. And you really can't tell the difference once they're polished up. There's another picture of the hubcaps. I send this out to a machine. This is a picture of the end caps of the rope reels. One was broken off, so I took that and glued it and sent it to a foundry, and they made replicas of old ones. And so the two reels on the cover now are replicas. But I had one was broken off, one was missing, so I had to make replicas. And that was a picture of it in the shop. I've decorated the wheels. All the decoration on this pumper is all gold. All gold leaf. But it's not laid individually. They're all, a friend of mine makes water transfers. They're like decals. And they have to be put on there and then clear coating so they don't come off. But all the striping on the wheels, even the curve striping, was straight at one time. You can put it in water and form it so it goes in a curve. So the striping was all straight at one time. And then I applied it so it would be in the curve. There's another shot of my shop where I had this. It's kind of a coincidence that I was just finishing up this pumper, and I didn't know where it really was from. So the Historical Society that this company was in has a list of all the serial numbers of hand pumpers and their locations. And they said that this pumper was either in Kalamazoo, Michigan, or in Champlain, New York. The thing that threw me off is this was built in 1858. Champlain was not incorporated until 15 years later. And so I kind of blew that off because why would a pumper be built for a town that wasn't even incorporated yet? But apparently from what Chris told me, this was owned privately, and when Champlain became an incorporated village, that company donated this pumper to the Champlain Fire Department. And so that's why the discrepancy in the dates.
Privately owned locally here? Was it, you said it was privately owned before the incorporated village?
Yeah, probably privately owned.
Privately owned locally?
Here, locally, yeah. Either a mill owned it or some other large, entity owned it. And I'm sure they let the town borrow it when they had a fire. But it was privately owned, and then when Champlain became a village, it went to you guys. Right.
Jared and I worked basically have a lot.
So they have water.
That's what we're thinking. Which makes sense because that was, I wasn't here, so I mean. You were here.
There's a couple more shots. But yeah, pretty much covers it. Is there any questions you have in regards to this pumper? Oh yeah, this built on water. It just doesn't have a suction over it. It's got all new leathers in it, and when we were exercising it sucks air in here, so it will pump water.
You know what the flow rate?
Yeah, it's about 500 gallons a minute. But not for a very long time.
How fast is the rate?
you'd have to be really going at 500 gallons a minute, but you can only do it for maybe at the most 10 minutes, and you have to get another crew. That's when it was in the village. The firemen started fighting fire, then the village would jump in. You could not pump this for more than 10 minutes without being out of it.
How many men on each side?
I would say about 40 altogether, 20 on each side. Right, or more if you had more people. Right. Yeah, it's kind of a funny story that my brother and I sold it, and then it went to the gentleman that owned a museum in Mississippi, and he sent it up to get restored, and it never got restored, so he got mad and took it back to the museum, but it was all dismantled. And then about 8 years ago, a good friend of mine from Alabama who acquired the estate came to me and said, hey, I just got a hand pumper, and he showed me pictures that my brother had taken. And I said that, you know, Joe, you're going to believe this, but I owned that at one time. And I told him I'd come down to Alabama to survey it. It took a couple of years to get down there, and I noticed that you know, it was almost all there, and I negotiated to buy it back, and there it is. Never in my wildest imagination, I think that in 1977, I would still have this pumper in 2025. You know, just never entered my mind. Because once it was gone, it was gone. And then it came back to me, and then I really put every effort to get it. So this is what your pumper looked like in 1858, except for the suction hose. And that's the story. Not very hard. I just didn't go ahead and to put such a, but it would be very hard.
We won't talk too loud because the presentation is still going on. It's a presentation on the restoration of this hand pumper, now on display at the Champlain Fire Department in Champlain. Reference to Champlain being a town earlier. He corrected that and said village. The town of Champlain was incorporated in 1804. Excuse me, in 1788. 1788. In 1804, Shazy and Moores came off of the town of Champlain, but in 1788, that's how long the town of Champlain has been in existence. The village of Champlain, I believe, was incorporated in 1873. So 1788 to 1873 is a difference between the town of Champlain and then the village of Champlain, which is a portion of the town being incorporated in 1873, 95 years later. So a little hard to hear. We had to juggle around to get pictures of what he was looking at, but we thought since we were here for this dedication ceremony, we would also get the little background on the restoration of this handheld pumper, the first fire apparatus, Niagara hose, hook and ladder, Champlain Fire Department.